So I'm going to disconnect the battery with a 10mm socket. I'm going to remove this nut, and I'm doing this because I'm going to pull the starter to get to the crank sensor. You'll have a lot more space, and it's going to be a lot easier of a replacement that way, at least in my opinion. So you don't have to pull the starter, but I feel like it's worth it. Otherwise, you'll spend most of your time trying to see and reach for the crank sensor. You don't have to take this nut off completely. There we go. Just pry this out of the way. Set it aside so it can't make contact. So here's the starter from underneath, and the first thing I'm going to do is unplug the trigger wire. It's just clipped in over here. There's a tab up top that you have to lift up and pull back on the wire at the same time. And that should pop it off of here for you. There we go. And then with a 13mm socket, I'm going to remove the mounting nut for the main power wire. This shouldn't be tight at all. Should come off fairly easily. Okay, there's the nut. Remove the power wire and set it aside. And this is why I unplugged the battery, because you don't want this dangling around and shorting. There we go. Set that aside. There's two of them. Okay. There's a 15mm bolt right here, and then one up top, but I'll start with this one. I'll go ahead and break it free. There we go. Leave that just like that, a few turns out, and then I'm going to add an extension to my ratchet so I can reach up and over the starter to the other 15mm bolt that's sitting kind of diagonally up at the top. Okay, there's the top bolt. And I'm going to use the power tool on the bottom one to make things faster. Okay, take that out. Now you can slide the starter straight out and remove it. There's your crank position sensor right here. Let's go ahead and unplug it. Set the wiring harness aside. Now take your 8mm socket, slide it up and over this bolt, and go ahead and break it free. There we go. Remove the bolt completely. Take that bolt out. Now you can grab onto the crank sensor and twist it to break it free. Sometimes they're pretty stuck in here. Grab this with a pair of pliers and just try to twist it, break it free. There we go. There it is. And the trouble was being caused by this O-ring and corrosion. Both of these together are making it basically impossible to get out. But just be gentle, because you don't want this to break flush with the engine, then you'll be in more trouble. I'm going to use a rag and just clean up the mounting area where the crank sensor mounts, and make sure no debris makes its way inside of the hole where the sensor actually goes through. I'm sticking my rag in there and trying to absorb all the oils and push all the debris away. And then just wipe off the surface. I'm going to inspect it with my mirror, and it looks to be in good condition, so definitely has cleaned up well. Take your new crank sensor. You can put a little bit of engine oil on here so that the O-ring can slide in easier. Slide it into its mounting hole and make sure it presses in all the way. If you slide in your bolt and it doesn't want to go through, that means it's not lined up with the hole. So I need to spin it either up or down. Oh, there we go. There we go. I had to spin it clockwise to line it up. Slide in the bolt, we'll bottom it out, and give it a little snug. This doesn't have to be very tight, it's a very small bolt, so be careful with it. You don't want to break it. Okay, and connect the electrical connector, make sure that clicks. Now we can put the starter back. Now let's get the starter reinstalled, line it up with the engine, and make sure you don't pinch any wires here when you slide this up. I have the bottom bolt handy so that I can thread it in and secure it temporarily, that way it doesn't fall out while I go get the rest of the hardware. So I'll make sure that this is threaded in properly, which it is. Not going to tighten it fully yet, just in case the starter needs to move just a little bit to line up the top. Let's get the top bolt in. I'm going to put it in my extension and then run the extension over the starter, and with my other hand I'm going to feel for where it has to go in. Right about here, but it's not quite lined up yet. I think that's because it has to pivot and move around a little bit. Unless I'm not feeling for the right, oh, there it is. Okay, there's the top one. That one's started. I have to hold the starter like this and make sure that it threads in by hand easily. You don't want this to cross thread. Let's ratchet this in. Okay, that one's tight. Let's quickly tighten up this one as well, and then we'll go ahead and torque these. 30 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these mounting bolts. That's one. Let's do the other one. Okay, let's try it again. All right, that's definitely tight. We'll double check this one down here. Okay, let's slide on the power wires. The main power wire goes on first. This is the big one coming off the battery, and the second one is the one coming off the alternator. Go ahead and put on your mounting nut that secures both of these and tighten it down. Don't go too tight. The torque for this is 89 inch-pounds. What that really means is just make it snug and then give it a little extra. And that should be plenty right there. This is a brass stud, and you can break it internally inside of the starter, and you definitely don't want to do that. So now plug in the other wire over here. Make sure that clicks and is secured on. Perfect. Now let's reconnect the battery. Reinstall the battery terminal and tighten it up. Make sure that's nice and snug. Perfect.